Hello and good morning. It's Julie here, your host of Julie Davis Flower Workshops and Flowers Start, the online flower arranging classes. I've taken a moment to walk the grounds with my secateurs in hand. And as you know, I started this Tuesday morning series to challenge myself to see whether I could make a flower arrangement out of what my garden had to offer. Really easy to do in the height of summer. It's very difficult to do in the depths of winter. So if you're watching, please leave me the hashtag live, and if you are catching up later on today, leave me the hashtag replay and we can chat in the comments. If you're watching live and you comment live, I'll be able to answer you directly. And if you're watching on the replay later on, just leave a comment and I will come back to you as soon as I get the notification. So if you watched last week's live video, I gave you a walking tour of the garden. I took my camera up to the pond, we broke the ice on the surface of the pond, and again, looking at those very meagre offerings. So this morning I have taken a few minutes quiet by myself and gone back around the garden and picked a few stems of flowers, and really as I picked, well, they're not flowers, it's stems of greenery. And as I picked them, I thought, oh, goodness me. Good morning, Joan. I didn't think good morning me. Goodness me, good morning, Joan. I had a moment of thinking, there is absolutely, well and truly, nothing in my garden. And when you look at it from the camera, you see a length of lawn. And everything is just looking so sad. So this is never a garden full of flowers. It's a garden that is garden for wildlife and for ease. There's lots of ground clover plants. So I look with envy at the flower farmers I see on YouTube and Pinterest and Instagram and think how glorious those gardens are. Mine is a very ordinary town garden with not much in it. So it really is a challenge to find something to cut. So hot cup of tea. Let's get going. So I will show you what I have managed to cut this morning, and to talk about the state of your secateurs as well. Are you cutting what you need from your garden using your florist scissors or your secateurs? And how often do you maintain your cutting implements? So I bought a job lot of second-hand secateurs because I wanted one of the pairs, and they looked like those Japanese snips. I don't think they are. I think they're a knockoff version. The ones that have got quite colourful handles and quite bulbous handles as well. So I have spent the weekend not these Felco secateurs, but cleaning up the second-hand secateurs and learning how to do it and how to sharpen the blades as well. So if you're interested in learning how to do that, I will make a video another time, to show you. So I've used my secateurs. Sometimes I will say, if you find your secateurs, I use mine normally like this. If you find you're having difficulty cutting, it's to turn them upside down and use them like that. So that's what I was using, because I was cutting quite woody branches today, because that's the only thing I've got in my garden. We have got quite a lot of buried ivy. So this is really good for the insects. And I think beekeepers amongst you, I think ivy is the first nectar of the season that the first sort of flush of honey is made from. And you'll notice that I haven't cut myself a lot either, because this isn't about cutting everything that's going. It's almost like a mindful experience. I know exactly what vase I'm going to use, and it's one with quite a small neck, and I've chosen one with quite a small neck because I know I haven't got much plant material in the garden. So I've gone for 2 stems. So immediately I'm breaking all the flower arranging rules. If you like a rule, normally you would place things in your vase in 3s. So it creates a flow of a triangle rather than the even numbers, which can be quite geometric. So, 2 branches, where do I put them? One here, that creates a very static line. Or if you had 4 branches, that would make a square. And you don't want to make all these for hard angled edges in your arrangement. But I thought, I don't want to cut 3 branches. I haven't got a very big vase. I don't want to be constrained by the rules. And I picked this, a very ordinary, everyday plant material, because it does have a slight drape to it. So where the berries are heavy, it pulls the branches down. And I want it to flow out over the edge of my vase. So that is number one. Number two, I have cut some bay. So this is the lovely bay. I love it. It makes this rustling sound when you run your fingers up and then releases that scent. And of course you can use bay in your cooking. Although if you do use bay in your cooking, it always says, like, take one bay leaf. And those of you who've got bay growing in your garden will know that it is quite a vigorous grower. And when I cut this, I think our bay tree, it's sort of growing like a hedge. It must be about 4 metres high. And I had to get right up like this and yank a bit of the stem down, bend it down towards me and then cut it. So it does grow very fast. And I think actually it's heading for the chop. Not that we're going to get rid of it, but I believe we're going to get someone into the garden to sort of take all our hedging down to a manageable height and then let it grow a little bit more. So again, I've got 2 stems of that, but this one's quite branched, so I have got opportunities with that. I quite like using bay in my arrangements. We've also got a laurel bush, which is, I don't know whether you can see it's that one there. It's planted there because it disguises our chicken coop. We don't want to be able to see that from the kitchen window. But the problem with laurel, although it's a lovely evergreen glossy leaf, I find the leaves are too big in a vase arrangement. If you were doing a huge pedestal for church flowers, it would probably be fine because you want to have that scale and things to be seen. So I think a laurel is a good substitute because it's got a smaller leaf. And then I'm considering putting in this Scots pine. This has been lying decoratively on my table, or according to my husband, looking a right old mess. And it was cut for some door wreath workshops I was going that I was running, and so it's come from a friend's garden, not actually my own. And I thought, should I put this in? What I could do, it's very sticky, the sap. I could pull off the pine needles at the bottom and put that into the vase. The reason I'm hesitating here is I've got holly. I haven't got holly. I've got ivy. I've then got a sort of Christmas pine. And I have actually got some holly berries. I don't want this to look like a Christmas arrangement. I want it to look wintry. Joan's saying she would love some more bay in her garden, but she just hasn't got the space. That is always the problem. I would say, Joan, it's a little bit of a brute, a bit like eucalyptus. We did have a eucalyptus tree that my husband rescued from Woolworths many years ago, and we planted it in the corner of the garden. And within no time at all, it was practically as tall as the house. And if you are going to grow eucalyptus to use in your flower arrangements, I would say you absolutely need to be cropping it hard. You almost need to have this little stumpy stem with the pieces coming off. If you let it grow into anything that is tree-like in scale and size, it's just going to be unusable, because you'll end up the same problem I've had with my bay, that all the good branches are way too high up, and then it becomes a problem because you can't stretch, you can't reach, it outgrows your long-handled loppers, and really there's nothing for it but to give it a chop. So the thing to do is give a planting list to those of your friends who've got large gardens. Don't mind if things get a little bit out of control. And as I take that off, my hand is getting very sappy. So we'll just have to see whether I want to put that in, because I want it to look like a January arrangement, not as if it's in the middle of December. So one thing I have cut I've gone for 3 this time, is my little Arum Pictum Italicum leaves. Now, do you remember last week I showed you these, and they were a patch in the corner of my pond, and because it was really frosty that morning, I think it was 11 o'clock in the morning, it was still -4, they had gone absolutely crinkly. And I remember, Joan, you were saying that you got a fatsia, and had that suffered from the frost as well. So they looked as if they were never going to recover, and they have just thawed out, and they have sort of regained some of their shape. Now, the only problem with these is that although it's got quite a nice, elegant length stem on it, I'm just conscious of the fact that when I put this in my vase, I'm going to need to make sure that I've got lots of water in my vase, because otherwise these stems aren't going to reach, if I put them down to the bottom of the vase, then I'm not going to be able to show them for decorative effect. And again, because they look quite fancy, I'll probably position those in my vase so they drape over the edge so you can actually see them. And I've got a white ceramic, a white sort of earthenware jug I'm going to use. So I'm hoping with the contrast, imagine my hands is the jug, it's going to look quite nice. So I must put those there. I was going to take another cup of tea. Actually, I could take another serve of tea. The pine needles have landed up in my teacup. When I said a cup of tea, it's actually boiling water. But did you know that you can use pine? You can eat it. So I would say probably not commercially grown Christmas trees, because you may well find that it might have been sprayed with something. But I know that this has come out of a friend's garden and she doesn't use any sorts of sprays. But yes, it looks rather... I can't tip it up because it's going to run out of the saucer. But it's obviously not been there long enough. It still tastes like a cup of water from the kettle. Now, because I wanted to try and create a little bit of visual interest, I haven't got the flowers. Where is my eye going to land in my vase? I was looking around the garden trying to find things that might have a bit of interest. So I've come up with the... it almost looks like a topiary tree, doesn't it? Perhaps I could just do that. Just put that in a bud vase and just say, look at my topiary tree arrangement. Doesn't it look fabulous? So this is Choisia, the mock orange with, again, lovely glossy oval leaves. It's just got this sort of... It's got a rosette formation, which is why I've landed on it, because I thought it looked like, something. The only problem is the way it's grown. It's going to be quite tricky to use because I don't want it to get upright. I want it quite low in the vase. I almost want it to sort of be positioned like that in the vase, so I'll just have to work that out. And then I've taken a bit of a risk. Do you know this plant? So this is a euphorbia. So in sort of April, May, June, it'll open out and it has those a bright sort of lemony yellow lime sort of citrus looking head and a tiny bracts that are the flowers. But when you cut it, it has a milky sap that drips out of the end. So what I did normally to stop that milky sap infecting your other plant material, you can strike a match and sort of burn off the sap, but you have to do that once you'd worked out how long you wanted your stem to be. But I have just cut this, and I've just, with the other greenery, it's been here for about 5 minutes and it has dried out. But immediately I cut that to length again for the vase, it's going to ooze. To be honest, I'm not particularly worried. Everything else in this vase arrangement is robust evergreen greenery, but if I was mixing it with more delicate flowers, I would want to make sure I had conditioned or looked after this one properly. And then what else have I got? I have got my catkins from last week, which I pretended I'd cut from the garden, but I cut when I was out dog walking. So they've just been sitting on my patio table for a while. And then I've got a few stems here of willow. I think in previous videos I've variously referred to this as willow and hazel. It's willow. So this came out of my Freddie's Flowers delivery. So you may well have seen me doing a quick arrangement in my January Blues video, and also yesterday's video. Did you see that one? I posted at 3 o'clock, which is my normal posting time, 3 o'clock on a Monday, and I had did a little segment on compote vases, and then did an arrangement, sort of a classic foam-free arrangement in an asymmetrical twist, and I did put some of those stems in there. So those are my materials for today. Now before I get on with those, because I'm going to make another arrangement, I'm going to finally get rid of the arrangement I made over the festive period. So there's a little bit tidying up going on here. So I have got my compost bucket here. I'm still thinking, could I save the decorative cabbages to put into another arrangement? I don't quite know about that. And I have got the little bits of silver sprayed silver birch, so I may well hold on to those. I could even put it into the arrangement I'm going to make today. But those little bits there, you bought them, you don't need to throw them away when the rest of the vase has gone over. So I can think about saving those. If I am going to save them, I will probably put an elastic band around them, and then I've got a pot of dried plant material that I keep in my workshop, so it's sort of contained. And then everything else, can just go, I've got my compost bucket here, can go into the compost bucket. So because these are woody materials, these don't actually go onto my compost heap because my husband has a system. These will go out into our wheelie bin. We pay to have a garden compost wheelie bin emptied once a month. So in there, can you see it? There was a veritable soup of yuckiness. So I will be tipping that away. It's got the chicken wire in there. So what I will do when I make myself a cup of tea when I go back indoors, I will have my cup of tea. I will put this chicken wire into my washing up bowl, put the hot kettle on it, and that will just kill off any bugs or whatever. Disease is just sort of part of that hygiene that we want to be thinking about. And then the other arrangement, I think I'm ready to pass on, go across to the other side, is my mixed bunch that I bought from our street market. So I don't know whether you saw the pictures I posted in the Facebook group, Flower Start World. So that's a free group you can join, and there's a link to that in the notes under the video. But I bought a mixed bunch of eucalyptus and these ilex berries before Christmas, and they were still going strong. And I noticed when I went into town on Saturday that they were still selling the same bunches. So I don't know whether it was a fresh cut or it was the bunches they had surplus to requirements last time round. So here I've got, this has been out on my patio table. It probably is on its last legs. And those are the absolutely glorious ilex berries. So it's a deciduous variety of the holly. So the leaves fall off and the berries are left. It still looks rather lovely. But I bet if I was to put that into my vase arrangement, because I'm having my vase arrangement indoors this week because I'm using a pottery vase and I don't want it cracking in the frost, that would just shatter and disappear really quickly. So probably not the best. And then eucalyptus, can I save anything here? That stem's gone over, but there's a little bit of green and warmth left. That's probably gone over as well. So I can't remember how much I paid for these. It was probably only £3, I think. So I got a good bunch of the ilex, which went into my Christmas door wreath, which is still hanging on my front door. And I'm getting into trouble now because every time we open the door, it shatters a little bit. So let's go. So this is my earthenware pot. And actually, if you've ever done Flower Start, which is my 4-week online, email and pre-recorded video class, you'll recognise this container because it's the one I use in the week 3 arrangement. So what I'm going to do is take my floristry scissors and trim up my material. So taking off the knobbly edges, measuring up to see whether I need to recut to cut for length, but in any event I will always recut the stems. And when you put the first stem in, it's just going to wobble. It's not going to stay where you want it to stay. It's going to take a little bit of time to get enough materials in to actually stand up. So I'm not using any mechanics. I'm not using chicken wire. And the reason for that is I've got quite a small opening, and I know that the time I got my flowers in, so what I might do, where that one's got that V bend, I might poke that through there so it's sort of locking together. So I've got a bit of a spread, a bit of a sideways spread. So do I want to put my pine in here? It's quite chunky and it's quite upright in character, so I will recut the stem. So I'm alternating here between my scissors and my secateurs depending on the job I need. It's quite stiff, and here same thing again, cut them off. So let me know in the comments whether you're at a flower class at the moment. Are there flower classes running in your local area? And what is it that you have signed up to do? So it's about this time I say that I do run, or for the 2 years since lockdown, I've run Zoom flower classes, and they are all recorded. You can attend them live. And they're all recorded. So if you wanted to catch up with a flower class and you didn't have an opportunity to actually visit a class locally to you, that you can watch the recorded Zoom flower class videos. So they're in the shop section of my website. So if you're interested in that and you're a bit confused about where to look, if you leave a comment, just comment Zoom and I will point you in the right direction. as to the classes. So to begin with, the classes were sort of 3-week sessions, and then we moved to 10-week classes. And I think the last series of classes we did, when we were following, oh gosh, can't I remember the lady's book? Chris de Beer. We were following or being inspired by her work. And that class, I think, was 8 weeks long. So here I've got 5 stems in my vase, splaying out a little bit. And then what I tend to do is to put all my materials of one type in first and then move on. So I'm layering up. So it was like layer number 1 was the ivy, layer number 2 was the Scots pine, layer number 3 is going to be my quite stiff and straight bay. So I'm cutting that off the main stem, and then with my hands taking off the lower leaves, and where I find a gap I put them in. So the trick here is you don't necessarily need to put all your flowers, you know, the cut and plonk you might do with your supermarket flowers. It's to try and get them to be varied in height, varied in position, and they could be at, you know, quite jaunty angles as long as the stem is firmly in the vase and it's actually in the water. So you'll quite often find that the reason your flower arrangement might fail is because you haven't got enough water in. So if you're being very jaunty with the angle of your plant material, you need to make sure it's got lots and lots of water inside, and to top the water up. And especially if you've got a warm living room, not only will your plant material take the water up, but the warmth of the living room will make it evaporate as well. So it's about, although I haven't got any colour in there because I don't have any flowers to put in there, what I've tried to do is to concentrate on the form of my flower and the textures. So the form means the shape of the flower. Oh, I've got a bit of a frog in my throat there. And the texture is what it feels like. So I've got the prickly looking Scots pine and the leathery looking bay leaves there, which, you know, I've also got the leathery ivy as well, but because they're different shapes and the ivy's got more of a vein to it, it does have a slightly different appearance. So that's probably the front facing you, and then thinking about, well, that's the front, where is my focal flower going in? I was thinking about that as a focal, or to put in my stem of euphorbia. So let's have a look and see what I can do. And the reason I can remember where the front is because I've got a handle on that side, so I know every time I twist and look at the vase, the handle for me is on the right hand side. So I'm just wondering, because this is sort of facing the wrong way, I almost want it on the stem the other way up, and that's the challenge of your flowers, is that sometimes the stem isn't your best friend because of the way the growth has naturally occurred. I'm not sure I like that, actually. It's given me quite a flat, dead centre to the vase. So let's have a look at my euphorbia. So, oops, dropped the scissors, but they didn't land in the compost bucket, so I will remember to pick them up afterwards. So I'm putting that one a little bit higher. You see it there, it's just sort of welcoming a little bit. I think I am, having cut that. I can't find place for it. And I mustn't forget my little arum leaves here. So what I am going to do is to go under the patio table and get my scissors, because my secateurs they're okay for the woody stems, but they're not sort of knife sharp. They need sharpening, but my floristry scissors are sharper. And I'm going to go right in and sort of move everything out of the way a little bit and put perhaps one leaf on that side. And I'm not going to put my 3 leaves equally around the vase to make a little visual triangle, because my vase is going to go up against a wall and you won't see the fancy leaf, and it will also get crushed a little bit. So I'm going to put it around like that so you can just see a little glimpse of the leaf. And then stand back. We are artists after all, so have a look. see what it's like. Obviously, I'm standing up to arrange, so at some point I will need to sit down and look at it to make sure it looks good at eye level as well. It looks rather nice looking down on it, but I'm not going to be, because I know where it's going to go, I'm not going to have this view of it. I'm going to be looking at it. So I'm going to use the very last of my eucalyptus. So everything here is quite stiff and straight, so I might take the opportunity with the eucalyptus of taking advantage of the graceful arch to it. So have that crawling, you know, so climbing out of the vase a little bit there. And this one here, cut that shoot off the side, shorten it a little bit, and have that. Again, I've got two that I'm working with. This one's quite bushy, and I can separate out the leaves, the branches a little bit. And then I might, I don't know, is it going too far? I could trim off the browned edges of my cabbage and put those in as well. I'm just conscious of the fact though that these are very old, and once they get into the warmth of my living room, we may have the smell of Brussels sprouts lingering. But I guess if that happens, I will just take them out. They can go on the compost heap. So recutting the stems, and I'm going to put those towards the front again to make this sort of a little bit of a focal area. So when you look at my lovely leaves, you'll see, oops, so I'm having trouble now getting the stems in. Oops, because there are such a quantity of stems holding everything up. So I might go like that. So I've got my eucalyptus there and then my 3 cabbages down there. So as I look at it, there's something to grab my eye. It's not just a total sort of mess of green. There's some sort of look. I'm going to tuck that eucalyptus in a bit more because there was too much of the bare stem showing. I'm twisting this bit of bay round because as I notice it, I've obviously cut something off here before and I can see the cut end. So I'm going to turn it around so I can just see the back of the leaf, because I want to see all the good bits and not the bits that are a little bit worn. And I think I need something to come up near the handle. So again, this is a little bit of an arch here. Take the leaves off, recut the stem. I just feel I need to have something rolling out of the vase. And make sure, if you are putting things in at a peculiar angle, that you do make sure your stem isn't just shooting straight out at the top of the vase, that you've got something like that. So perhaps if I lift that up, and do I need some twiggage? I have got some twigs. So that was the front of the vase, and if I bring it up closer you can see the decorative leaves there. You can just see the little bit of cabbage there as well. And then the question is, I think the silvery branches are just too Christmassy, so I'm going to put those to one side to remember to take in. Do I want to put my bits of willow in? So they have got, I thought I had 2 of those, I've dropped one. They have got a sort of a yellowy tone to them, which will be a nice flash of colour. So again, I stand back and I think I've only got 2 of them. Where am I going to put them? One there and one at the front too. So it's sort of like a dart that's gone through the middle. And then my catkins. Am I overdoing it? Now I think possibly putting my catkins in is going to overdo it, because they are absolutely beautiful, but I almost feel they need to be in a vase on their own. They're a little bit busy. So I'm going to save those and just have them, for instance. Sue, you're saying got any catkins? Do you think I ought to put the catkins in? So I just thought that I feel this is quite elegant simplicity, and I'm just wondering if I've got the catkins in, whether it's going to make it too busy. Now, when you're in a situation like that, then what you need to do is to sit back, and at this point I would say, go and have a cup of tea and see what you think. And then I would say, just let your mind rest on it. Does that need, just going to trim a bit of that willow there. Do I need to add it? And just because you've got it doesn't mean you have to put it in. Or take a photograph, and if you do take a photograph, I'm right with you, Sue, I'm going to try it. Just have a look and then put some pieces in. So we'll take Sue's advice and we'll have a look. So I've got this stem here. It's too tall, but if I cut it about here, I'll end up with two pieces, one piece there and then one piece right away from the bottom. And so recut the stems and have a go. So I don't want to get what I think I'm worried about is getting lost. So I'm thinking if I bring the stems out to the outer edge, that when I've got those against the plain wall of my living room, that they'll be silhouetted a little bit. Actually, so I think you might be right. You just never know, do you? And in fact, I think I might prefer these to the willow, which is quite, although it's a twisted willow, it's quite straight in terms of how twisted your willow can be. So we'll have to have a look and see what we think. That one's got lots of little bits at the bottom, which I have to get rid of. So you want to know a nice straight stem going in the vase. It just means as well that if you change your mind about putting something in, if it's a nice straight stem going in, it's easy to pick out as well. So I'm going to go that one over there, the back. Yes, I like your thinking. Sue. Good suggestion. A flower arrangement done by committee. So again, it's just another layer. You probably can't really see it very well. And actually, I'm wondering whether I need that willow in there. Perhaps it's this one. It's very straight and stiff. What I'm going to do, it's too stiff. I'm going to cut it out, and then I could just reposition it. If it was branched, that's better. It sort of was like a dart coming out. So Joan, you said it's interesting. You think they look too busy. You think they add contrast. Yeah, I was just concerned that because everything was sort of a green palette, that was going to just look too much. But if I'm then saying I didn't want to put the holly in, and I was worried about the Scots pine because I've got the ivy as well, because I don't want to look Christmassy. We are actually in January. Spring is hinting around the corner. This is exactly what I should be doing. I think probably I am suffering from my problem of always thinking I could save that for something else. What if it would look better in something else? Why don't I just use it now? And I think what's helping is because as I think I only had 2 or 3 stems of this, as I'm actually coming to look at it and cutting pieces off, they're going in as single stems, so they don't look so cluttered. Whereas when I had the big bunch, it was just a mass of things. So every time looking at the branch and seeing where to cut it to get the length that I need to come out. So I'm going to go for the side section there. So those of you who are watching and have expressed an interest in my teaching class, you'll be pleased to know I've done some planning and I've got an outline for the first class. So I will be making a commitment to write to you or to email you to let you know about the class. And I think probably to begin with, I'm going to do a one-off class, because it may well be, if you are feeling confident in your skills and you just still want to check in and how I do things and what I think about before I do a class, you may well find that the one-off standalone class is enough for you. But if you want to delve in deeper, we will. My plan is then to hold, perhaps a one-off session to start with, and perhaps a 3-part session for the next little bit to talk in more detail about what we covered in the first section. So I'm meeting another friend today, and I do find, as you know, I know how to teach flower arranging classes, but teaching you how to teach your own classes is a little bit of a step change to me. And I'm having, I've got the idea, and it's committing to put it into practice. So those of you who've been following me up my email newsletters will know that I met a friend. I had my business meeting with myself about 3 weeks ago in the library, where I just got away from home just to have a concentrated sit down. I then followed that up with like a mentoring session with one of my friends who runs her own business. And today I'm meeting another friend who is an artist we've previously worked before. That's right. So teach the teacher. So it's my way. If I verbalise it, I commit to it, and then I'm getting the support of the people around me who I know are really good at doing things. It makes me do it as well, because next time I meet up with my friends and I've committed to do something, because they've got that business brain as well, that I feel that I have to show the teacher my homework to say, look, I have done this. So I've made progress, and my commitment to you is that I will be, those of you who've already expressed interest on Teach the Teacher, that I will be emailing you with setting out what the plan is, and then committing to a date. So I need to look at my diary in terms of dates, but it will be a Tuesday. It'll be a Tuesday at noon, because I know some of you are working from home, so it's a good opportunity. You can join in live during your lunch break. And as I say, to begin with, it'll be a one-off session, and you'll go away from that session with a checkbox of things that you will need to be thinking of asking about and prepping yourself for before you go ahead to the class. Now, I hate to admit this, ladies, but your advice was, of course I don't hate to admit it, having thought that I didn't need or want the busyness of those catkins, it has, as Joan says, added some textural interest. So thank you, Sue, for prompting me to do that. I think that looks all right. I think it looks more than all right. I think from the dullness of what I look at in my garden, and I must admit, I was thinking, why did I commit that I was going to do this vase arrangement? Because there's just absolutely nothing here. But it just goes to show, just take a few minutes to familiarise yourself with the garden. Take the time not to overcut. So the only thing I've wasted is that stem of choisia, and I have managed to create a pleasing arrangement. In fact, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to clip one of the leaves off the ivy, because it's covering up those the very small cabbages, so I will be able to see them. So what I will do is I will post a picture in my Facebook group of this put on my side. Sue's saying I taught you well. Thank you. So it's a process, isn't it? So don't beat yourself up, and always, if you're in two minds about something, either do it or don't do it. But the thing is, I think, is to walk away and come back to it with a fresh pair of eyes, which is where, if you haven't got a friend on the other side of the camera talking to you, you can, use your phone to take a picture and just decide whether you like it as is or not. But I probably the thing to say is, I don't think you can have too many flowers on the whole in an arrangement. If you've got them, just keep putting them in. But equally, if you're not arranging with many flowers, that can sometimes be, or stems, I should say, a little bit trickier. So you can see my fancy leaves at the edge. It's done what I wanted to, so you can actually see them silhouetted against the jug. And then the bits of catkin which are coming out right way over here and making the arrangement look lovely and big and imposing. And I know exactly where I'm going to photograph this. And those of you who've been to Zoom Flower Class will know exactly the position these vases are going to be put, because you will recognise it on my regular backdrop. So thank you so much for joining me live. I will be live again, same time, same place next week, Tuesday at 9. There'll be another video. Oh, I told you something wrong at the beginning. The video I posted yesterday was the one about the flower arranging magazines. It's next week. I've already filmed next week's video when I talk about the compote vases. So thank you for your questions. They inspire me to create new videos to answer your questions. It's next week, is the compote vase arrangement. And I normally go live on a Friday at 12 o'clock. And I did flag up that I wasn't sure I could do that this week because I had something on, and now I was just talking to my husband last night. I have managed to, sometimes you manage to scramble your own diary, and I'm now totally confused. I think I've got about 6 things to do on Friday. So it may well be that I'll keep you posted, but if it's not on Friday, perhaps we'll meet up on Saturday morning as well. No, Jane, sorry, I confused you because it was your question, Jane. So yes, it's because rather unusually I've got ahead of myself with my videos. I think because the weather was so nice last week, it was nice and bright for filming. And normally when it's quite, January weather, I need natural daylight to film in. And the days are so short, it's sometimes quite tricky to do. So I find myself, because I'm not teaching the Zoom classes at the moment, with a little bit of time on my hands. And I went straight in to film the next video. So yes, I'm 1 video on hand, so I can have a quiet weekend this weekend. So this is the only stem I've got left, which is my stem of holly. I seem to be getting more and more senior moments and having to write absolutely everything down because I can no longer, keep all those 6 million things up in my brain. So that's what I'm using my diary for at the moment, is a constant sort of going over and to-do list. And then at least if you made a list, you can strike it off, can't you? So my jobs for today are meet my friend to check out, to touch base. It's very American, isn't it? Or very jargony business work like. I need to catch up with my friend in order to keep my teaching on track. And I've also got to go to the post office because of renewing passports, and I've got to send those off as well. And I'm going to go to the library because I want to change my library books. And I want to write to you. I may write to you, draft a letter, email tomorrow. So we'll just have to wait and see. So thank you for joining me, and I will catch up with you 9 o'clock Tuesday morning next week. Bye.